sorry. The number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Are you listening?
Listen to people. Learn what you can.
What is racist and what is just ignorance?
If you've got a friend or an ally or somebody in your corner there to support you, amazing.
I just can't wait for the day where we're no longer pleasantly surprised that someone is LGBT+.
Ask questions on a personal level, do better.
Asking pronouns.
It was like the moment that I realised I was different.
Winning that award topped this year off for me.
Because without you, this world wouldn't be the same.
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Emmy O'Shaughnessy, Director of Innovation and Growth at Oxfordshire Youth and Deputy CEO. I am so happy to be welcoming you to part 2 of the Youth in Mind special edition of our podcast, Are You Listening? And what is Youth in Mind? Well, if you are coming onto this podcast today and you weren't at the event, then fear not, because you get an opportunity to listen to some of the leading voices in the mental health space at the moment, from academia to the charity sector, education and health. You'll also be hearing about from some amazing young people who are making waves in the campaigning world and with music organisations as well. A quick overview of what Youth in Mind is, so that you can make sure you come and find out more in person next year. Youth in Mind is an event for professionals that work with children and young people. We think Youth in Mind is really special in that it brings together statutory bodies, so the local authorities. We had Oxford City Council and Oxfordshire County Council present, alongside school workers, police, health, and of course the voluntary sector, united by our shared passion to improve the mental health outcomes for children and young people. But the most important partner is, of course, young people themselves. And the day opened out with young people. Across the one-day conference, we hear from the latest in research, but also we listen to the lived experiences of young people to ensure that everybody who attends the event is really informed by young people's voices and visions. On the day, there are workshops that take place from the morning right through the conference to the end, alongside keynotes. So today you get an opportunity to listen to a few of those keynotes, and in the next 2 episodes there will be more of the people who were on the panels for the event and leading sessions too. In this episode, Molly is sitting down with a couple of really remarkable people and a theatre company who is making waves in the world with their performances that tackle hard-hitting but really important issues. First up, we have Molly interviewing Dr. Mina Feazell, who spoke at this year's conference about the findings of her groundbreaking survey, the Oxwell survey. We'll make sure we put the links in at the end of this edition so you can find out more about the work that she is doing. But she is from Oxford University. She's the Professor of Adolescent Psychiatry, and she's been a regular at Youth in Mind, really informing the direction of travel for this conference in terms of the cutting edge research that is so important to be shared with people on the ground. So next up, we have Kelly Garside, who is a nurse by background and also a manager from CAMHS. I actually had the pleasure of speaking with her at Youth in Mind and watching her share the news about a new service that is addressing the needs of neurodiverse young people and making sure that those young people are having their needs met within the CAMHS system. So that was an amazing opportunity to hear about the progress being made there, and I hope you really enjoy listening to her share her reflections. And then finally, we have Nikki Stevenson, the joint CEO of Charwell Theatre Company, Matt Lehman, one of the actors from the show Enact that was performed at this year's Youth in Mind conference, and the director of Enact, Amelia Hutchinson. We really love creating these online spaces where young people like Molly get to interview people from all different types of disciplines and backgrounds and find out more about how they are addressing the full spectrum of human identity and experience. And you hear that in this episode. We think about mental health and neurodiversity, the lived experience of domestic violence and how this shapes mental health, especially for young women and girls. And also thinking about the collective voices of young people being heard and responded to through the groundbreaking research that's taking place right in this city. So it is time to tune in. We hope you enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side.
So we're back at Youth in Mind. You just come off stage. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your role.
So I'm Mina Fazal. I'm a professor of adolescent psychiatry at the University of Oxford. And I also work as a child and adolescent psychiatrist in the local children's hospital.
Oh, cool. Thank you. So what have you enjoyed about Youth in Mind so far?
I really enjoyed having everyone in the same space. So coming together with educators, with young people, with those working across every sector, statutory, voluntary, together, just trying to learn together. It feels like people want to learn together.
Mm-hmm. What have been your top 3 takeaways from the conference so far?
My top 3 takeaways are there's an interesting and important discussion, I think, about services. So actually not everyone who feels they have a mental health problem needs to be seen by child and adolescent mental health services. So there's something, I think, important about understanding that although you might have distress, part of that's normal, part of that might be better discussed and worked through either in school or outside school or different organisations, and actually together we need to help young people work out which places are best for which problems. That's just one takeaway, but feels like 3.
Yeah, no, that's so important. What makes you so proud to be in this sector?
I just love working with young people. It's just so interesting. They're so dynamic. Everything changes all the time. You've got to be on your toes. And also, I don't know, there are young people who actually do get overlooked. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like it's just not okay. And actually, can we work out what they need? What can we do? How can we make it easier? For those kids that are finding it particularly difficult to have their voices heard or to get support, what can we do to enable that? That's what I'm really interested in.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that mental health support in schools is working, and what would you change if you could?
So I think it started. It's definitely, it's a tough question. Mm-hmm. I do think mental health support in schools is working because it started. I think 10 years ago this wasn't happening like it is now. What we can now do, and because I come from the university and I like to think that research should be part of that discussion, we can now look and see, well, which kids are better supported at school and which kids are better supported in other places. So we just can't assume one size fits all. Mm-hmm. So, but we also have the information to work out what's best. So if you've got anxiety, if you're a boy, if you're 13, what do you most want to be able to do? So, for example, the Oxford Student Survey that I run can give you that information. Oh, it might be that they're better off seen at home than actually at school. But so that's what I think we need to do. We need to understand which groups benefit in which areas, and then really make our services much more appropriate for those groups.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Are there any trends that you've seen that are expected and some that are unexpected?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, it's not that it was unexpected, but you look at it and you go, oh, obviously, but we hadn't thought about it. So I think that's so more. So I think young people who identify as a gender that wasn't the one they were born with are saying that they probably don't want support from at home. They want it much more at school. It's obvious. But, we haven't been saying, oh, well, maybe actually, when we think about school provision, that's actually a really important group that we absolutely have to make sure we get right, because it might be much harder for them to get help elsewhere. And actually another thing that's really interesting for those children is they were the lowest group to tick, I don't know what I want. So they're a group that are thinking about what they need and also seeing that it's not there. So, you know, that's also where I'm like, oh, we've got to really start thinking properly around that.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's the sort of thing where you go, oh, of course, but you haven't thought of it before.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
What difference do you think local and national government could have in the conversation around young people's mental health?
So I think it's massive, actually. So we've started to look, for example, about social media. And I'll give you one example. So we ask, have you seen content about self-harm in the last month? And for those that have, which is almost half, we ask, how did you come across it? Now, 7%, so around 1 in 8, are saying they actually searched for it. So that might be because you want to help a friend who's self-harm, it might be to learn whatever. So 7% are saying they searched for it. Over 80% came up without them searching for it, on their feed, as part of something they were watching without wanting it, and that is absolutely unacceptable. But actually, that's only where policy comes in, and that's about kind of the algorithms are absolutely not being responsible about what young people are seeing, especially the most vulnerable. And I'm an adult, my algorithm is totally different, so I have no idea what a young person is seeing. So we also don't know, but that's where I don't think local things can necessarily help. We can educate each other about algorithms and all of that, but actually those are absolutely essential national issues.
As an autistic young person, I've noticed a real link between neurodiversity and increased rates of anxiety and depression. Is this something that you've noticed, and what do you think causes this?
So I think this year is the first year in Oxford we've asked about if young people perceive themselves as neurodiverse, so we can actually really look at that now and see. So we do know rates of anxiety are higher. I think it's two main reasons. One is we're not really very good in a lot of our structures to understand the needs of individuals who are neurodiverse. Like, I work in a children's hospital, and it's pretty loud and loads of colours, and everyone thinks it's important to make it exciting for kids to be there, but actually that's not appropriate for everybody. So I think a lot of individuals who are neurodiverse are forced to conform and live in a structure that isn't made to address their needs. So I think we can think a little bit more about education, about actually how can we also make this more welcoming, safer, more encouraging of a whole range of ways that people express themselves. So I don't think that's done well. And then I do think that it might be we need to understand a little bit better about those that do actually have anxiety disorders, how we help them and treat them and make that available.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was really interesting.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kelly Garside. I am a nurse by background, and I've worked for Oxford Health CAMHS for the last 26, nearly 27 years. It's coming up to next month. I am currently a service manager, and I particularly manage the NDC CAMHS team and the eating disorders team. My background has been clinical for many, many years. I went into management about 6 years ago, but prior to that, the large proportion of my career has been around supporting young people directly clinically, and now I've just slightly moved away into more leadership and management.
Okay, that's interesting. So what have you enjoyed about Youth in Mind so far?
Oh my gosh, so lots. So first and foremost was the introduction was beautiful, as I'd already previously said. It was really, really lovely. It's always tough starting. The children were quite amazing, and being able to utilise a song that they'd thought of that was poignant to them. I got little goosebumps on my arms, actually. I thought it It's amazing. I really loved listening to Mina and looking at the data and understanding the population and the ever-changing picture that we have ahead of us. And I think one of the things that's really stood out for me is unity. So, being part of the NHS, it's really important that we are part of the wider systems of our community, and I just felt this complete connection with everybody in the room and that unity of services, that we are all here with the same aims, the same goals, on the same journey, and we're doing it together. So it was a really lovely place to be, actually. So that's definitely a top thing for me today.
Yeah, definitely. The sort of solidarity in the auditorium was amazing.
Really felt it. Yeah, absolutely.
What have been your top 3 takeaways from today's conference so far?
Okay, my top 3. Well, my first one will be around the pressures and demands on the education system and funding. We know that the needs and what is required for education is ever changing. The needs of the families are different, the young people are different, but actually often schools need to manage that with the same pot of gold, and there isn't another pot of gold coming. So I really felt a level of compassion and empathy hearing that talk today around kind of those demands. The other element was, I felt a bit sad actually that maybe our colleagues in education aren't accessing the support in that unity context because of the time. You know, it really resonated with me. I've got 2 minutes to call a family, do 1,500 emails, prepare a lesson, and now I've got to research that service.
Yeah, that was tough.
I am really going to take that away. Actually, how do we streamline and get the message out there? This is what we deliver. So for me, I'm really going to take that away today. And the other thing that really kind of on a bit of an emotional level hit me today was after I spoke, someone came up to me that is a parent of a young person on the spectrum, is now working within our charitable sector, which is amazing. And she talked about her journey, and she talked about how pleased she is that services are adapting to meet the needs of the young people. And she was really quite emotional about that and pleased that services are adapting in line. And so that was another hair moment where I thought, I'm really pleased that's her experience. So yeah, they're my top 3 that I take away from today.
Yeah, absolutely. Both my sibling and I are autistic, and we've I know that they've started down the pathway of the neurodiversity with CAMS, and I've seen how that's helped them and how the service has been able to adapt to their needs, and that was so important.
Yeah.
What difference do you think local and national government could have in this conversation around young people's mental health?
I'd like the continued conversation around the inequalities in the health gap. I think that's a big topic that we need to be thinking about, and we need to be thinking about it more. I don't want to get into politics, but I'm not so sure we're being heard. The inequalities in the health gap is very, very clear. You can't play with data. You can't play with experience that is described. So I really think we need to make sure that health inequality agenda, that gap agenda, is on the agenda and it's being discussed more than it is at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that as an autistic young person, I've noticed a real link between neurodiversity and increased rates of anxiety and depression. I was wondering if that was something that you'd observed and why you think that is? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, we know that we talk about comorbidity in the NHS, so there is a higher comorbidity. So if the young person's on the spectrum, there is a higher rate of young person that experience clinical levels of anxiety than those without. We absolutely recognise that. And why is that? Do you know, I think it's so contextual and for so many different reasons. So as we know, anxiety is a natural part of our human system. It kicks in when it needs to give us a bit of a warning that we're uncomfortable or we don't like what we're doing. And so I think sometimes the world can be complicated and there are different situations that neurodiverse
adults and young people will find less tolerant of, and their anxiety then comes up. But on a positive, you know, we can do adaptations. You know, we all live where we live, do what we live, work how we work, because it fits who we are. And in that respect, there shouldn't be a difference.
Yeah.
You know, we adapt our life to meet the needs of who we are. So, yeah.
I was wondering if you had any advice for schools or other professionals in adaptations for both neurodiversity and mental illness, what kind of accommodations you would recommend? Obviously, they vary from person to person.
Yeah. Do you know, I could probably talk for hours about what adaptations we could use, but I think I would say top tip, starting point, is really get to know the young person. Every young person is different. Really get to know what works for them. It might be something like a change of colour, carpet. I'm looking down right now. This is one busy carpet down here. Yeah. And I think for a lot of young people and adults, I know I'm noticing it.
Yeah.
So I would say top tip, get to know who you're talking to, get to know the person, and really understand what makes a situation better. And then that would be your starting point. But of course, there's lots of services out there that can give you additional ideas. And I could talk for hours, as I said, but I think top tip, get to know who you're working with, who you're supporting. They will tell you. And if you listen, they will be really clear about what works and what helps in terms of adaptions.
Thank you very much. This has been really interesting. Thank you for coming to chat to me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
We're backstage at Youth in Mind with Cherwell Theatre Company. So tell me a little bit about yourselves and what you do.
So my name's Nikki Stevenson, and I am the Creative Communities Director and Joint CEO at Cherwell Theatre Company. And I have been the project lead on the Enact project.
I'm Matt Lehman. I'm an actor working with Cherwell Theatre currently. Worked with them in the past and got invited back for this project. So that's what we've been working on at the minute.
And I'm Amelia Hutchinson, and I'm the director of Enact Volume 2.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for being here. So what have you enjoyed about Youth in Mind so far?
The lunch? No, not really. I mean, it was great, to be fair. There was a really good helping of chips in there. The workshops have been really interesting. It's really great to get to interact with some of the really inspiring people that are doing amazing youth work across the county at the moment. And the thing that I'm finding most exciting about it is the really strong theme of us listening to young people, because that's the whole premise of what we do, of our project, is all about placing young people at the centre and listening to their voices. So it's really, really exciting that we're somewhere where everybody's sharing that viewpoint, and we're not advocating for it. We're getting to be around other people who already recognise why that is so valuable and important.
Definitely. How about you guys?
I'll go. Well, we've been over the other side. We've not been in any of the workshops and stuff, so we've been rehearsing. But it's just really nice to be, like Nikki said, in an environment where young people's voices are so celebrated and appreciated, which is, I know, definitely the aim with the Enact project, is to really put young people at the heart of this issue and have us as adults learn from them and learn from their experiences. So it's great that this is happening for them.
We've been on the other side prepping for a little performance we're going to do shortly, but just the platform and the gathering of people and sort of raising issues and awareness through maybe a different medium. That's many different mediums today, but obviously with a little performance, it'll be hopefully another insightful way to kind of make people aware.
Yeah, definitely. There does seem to be a real sense of like solidarity and community here, which is great. So what do you think is the hardest part of your jobs?
There's always hard parts to jobs. Obviously, like, as a creative, I think the hardest part of this job and on working on this project specifically is making sure that we bring everything back to the young people. If there's a debate in the rehearsal room about like, you know, what the intention of something is, or why it's happening, or why that word, or why that phrase, it's really useful to always say, but this is what the young people have said, it's what they've inspired, so we need to kind of honour them. So I think that's it's tricky sometimes to keep them in mind, because obviously we're not necessarily used to working in that way, but it's a really good thing to have like at the centre of it all.
I think acting is about truth and telling truth. myself and the other actors have come into the project after the work that's been done with young people, so we've sort of seen this. We've ended up with the products of the scripts, and it's trying to tell the truth of that, but it can be seen as a difficult topic to present, a very important topic to present, but it's about approaching it. The difficulty is approaching it with a sense of truth, which often is not nice to face. The characters you're portraying, be it the perpetrator or be it the victim, are very real people, very real lives. And we've had a lot of discussions in rehearsals about we're not making excuses for these characters of what they're doing, but you have to construct where they've come from, the situation they're in, and then telling that truth is more impacting than telling a stereotypical version of that, which really doesn't do justice to what we're trying to show. So I'd say that's probably one of the most challenging parts about what we do.
Yeah, that's really important, sort of the context and everything that sort of goes into something like this. Yeah.
My job's a bit different because I'm always at CTC, not just here for this project. And I think the hardest thing about my job is wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot of different things. So I'm here today and I've worked the whole weekend at a youth festival that we've done in Banbury, and next week we'll be doing the full-scale production of an act. So it's quite it's a really full-on job, and I'm often sort of skating between things. It's really nice to come to something like this and have a whole day where you focus on one thing, because often I'm like popping into the rehearsal room and then I'm sitting and I'm dealing with finances, and then I'm like trying to wade through some emails, and then I'm on the phone to somebody about a young person. So I think that's the most difficult bit of my job, is not being able to just always focus on the one thing you really want to focus on in that moment, because you're pulled in a lot of different directions.
What do you do to care for your own mental health while working on the project?
It's a very good question. I think as a cast, as a collective, we're creating something that's very, very important, that there's honesty, openness, and permission in the room to say, do, or take a moment out if you need anything. As I said, the topics we're focusing on can be very uncomfortable, very real, but very uncomfortable. So just having that space to be honest, take a step out with no questions asked. You're dealing with quite heavy emotions, quite heavy things that can play in your mind when you leave for the day. So we check in, we have with each other, and I think that's what it is you approach it as a collective. You are a collective full of individuals who may struggle, and that's okay, as long as you've got the openness there. It should be.
Yeah, I think we're having a lot of laughs as well. We're like really trying to find the lightness in the room and like our bond as a company. So like I love cooking, so my thing is like, we've had a stressful day, I'll go home and I'll make something like a bit too extravagant for my dinner. And like yesterday we had like a little group charcuterie board for lunch. We had like focaccia and brownies. So it's just like doing that and then being able to like come together as a group. Obviously in the context of all this difficult work, but being able to take a moment away from it and have that lightness is like, it's invaluable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we sort of set up on day one that the group have got a word they can use if they want to take some time out of the space, but also we set up the rehearsal room in a way that we're very close to our office, so if people need some time, there's somewhere that they can go, and we kind of set that as the precedent right from the beginning, that we recognise that this is difficult and that you're not just an actor or a creative professional who's been hired in to work on something, that we recognise what we're working on is really challenging and really difficult. And I think particularly set in the context that all of these words come from young people and that this is the reality of what young people are facing. I think for me that's an everyday thing, because I work in this industry, I work in this area, and I understand that, I hear that all the time. But I think as someone who is a creative professional, for example, like Matt might be working on a Shakespeare piece in 2 weeks' time, and this week he's working on something where he's hearing young people talk about really, really hard issues around violence against women and girls. And so we know that for someone coming in, they might not have the context of what the support services are around them, and that we might just be hiring them for a job, and then we just ignore the fact that actually there's something really difficult going on here. So we try and set that up right from the beginning, that we recognise that, and that we don't want to ignore that could be triggering for anybody, and we share the content in advance with actors before they take on the role so that they're aware of what they're coming into in case it's not the right thing for them.
What makes you so proud to work in this sector?
I feel so exceptionally proud to have found a way to use something that I'm good at to help young people. I have dyslexia and dyspraxia, and I had a lot of trouble at school. I wasn't necessarily the most well-behaved teenager in the world, and I grew up really feeling the limitations of what I thought I could achieve in life because of those things, because of spending a lot of time in an education environment that didn't suit me. And I've always had a commitment to helping other people, but it took me a long time to realise there was a way of combining the thing that I have always felt good at, which is theatre and the arts, finding a way to combine that with really supporting people and enabling people to be platformed and empowered by the work that's happening, and that they can come and be a part of that regardless of those boundaries that I might have felt as a young person. Being dyslexic would never be a disadvantage in what we do. It would only be an advantage because you think about things differently. And being autistic would never be a barrier, and having a physical disability would never be a barrier. Everybody's voice is equally as important, and we have a fun and creative way of helping people to realise that and unlock that in themselves. And I feel really proud that we're able to use that in an arena like violence against women and girls, and we do substance misuse work, and we do cyber safety work, and I think it's really exciting for young people to get to approach that in a way that is accessible to absolutely everybody. The arts is for everybody, and I feel really proud that we're able to use that as a vehicle. I feel exceptionally proud of the work that we've done through Enact, and I'm really proud of everything that we do to engage people.
Yeah, you should be.
Thank you.
How about you guys?
I obviously just feel like endlessly proud to work on Enact for all the reasons that Nikki said, but I do a lot of work as a facilitator as well, and I think for me it's the moments where you find a young person who maybe isn't as confident or is more shy or doesn't quite fit in or stuff like that, and you can watch them like grow and develop, and like there's a direct correlation between their link between them like coming to a session or a group and then going away and like doing loads better at school. Like when I was, because I did some work with CTC on their Tell Your Story Festival last weekend, and I was reading to children, and one of the mums said to me that the girl was really shy and really unconfident at nursery, and then she played the bear in We're All Going on a Bear Hunt, and like since that nursery haven't been able to shut her up. She just really like, found her confidence, and I was in there, I was like, that's why the arts matter. I was like nearly in floods of tears. It's so gorgeous.
Oh wow!
So I think it's that. It's like finding and generating that we've all found. Like we're not in the arts because of for the money or for the acclaim or anything. We're all here because it's done something for us. So it's nice to be able to like give back, really.
Yeah, pass that on. That's really cool.
I think generally for just a general acting stance, you're connected with people and experiences and stories and lives that I never would have been exposed to had I not entered this career. That can be wonderful, it can be challenging, really eye-opening, and it makes you really appreciate the world as art sort of speaks truth and it speaks expression. And I think just surrounding yourself with that and other creators and how they work is just a joy and fills me with pride. But then bringing it to CTC, it's my second time working with the company. Last time I did a project last year, we worked with the young people in the production, and it's nice. You kind of feel a part of then the bubble of life and the bubble of creativity. I can see a lot of my younger self in them, maybe a younger self with maybe similar things going on, and it's like, I don't want to compare it to a ladder, but essentially, the further, the older you get, or the more you progress within whatever career path you're in, someone else takes the spot you maybe once held, and then you can then give back to them, and just giving them a voice. And I think with issues like this, to bring it back to the project, I feel like the arts generally, the creative arts, is kind of left prevalent maybe in the school systems there once used to be. So that outlet, that voice isn't there. And as soon as you make a young person aware that they can have a voice in this way, and it can be presented in a way, I always say, I was always told I'd never have to put my entire truth on stage if I'm bringing something, because that's mine, but still it can be represented.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of a safe but inclusive way of young people getting involved and speaking their voice. And yeah, that's one.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much for sitting down to chat to me. I can't wait to see what you have. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for episode 2. I hope you really enjoyed hearing from those fascinating conversations, interviews. It's really important we keep the conversation about mental health going. So whether you want to tell us your thoughts about this episode, or you'd like to learn a bit more about Oxfordshire Youth, please make sure you check out our website, oxfordyouth.org, and you can follow us on social media. Do it today! Ox Youth on Twitter and Oxfordshire Youth on TikTok, Instagram and LinkedIn. Have a really good rest of your day or evening. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you on the next episode.